Welcome back, my friends, to another reading of Dome of the Rath. So glad you could join us today for Chapter 3, Tragedy for the Order. The morning sun's warming, snug, homely, mellow, toasty, sunny, spicy, gorgeous rays beamed down upon Bertie as he sat in the apple tree once again waiting for the morning children. He began eating popcorn, one kernel at a time, thinking about the previous night's events. Brown had returned, the one man he feared most in the world. He suddenly got a call from Stapley. He gingerly picked up his phone, only to hear a high-pitched scream, which he instantly recognized as a little girl. She was pointing at the tree Bertie was in, wailing louder than a banshee. His cover had been blown, but before he could get out of the tree, he heard the faint sound of a helicopter in the distance. He clambered out of the tree, slipping on the way down, ripping his frail black trousers clean off. All at once the entire park was looking at him in confusion, as a train of dark green military trucks roared up to the edges of the park. He instantly sprinted for the exit, but was blocked off by a wall of soldiers with FBI written on their bulletproof jackets. They all held small handguns and batons, and some of them had riot shields with visors on their helmets. "FBI, freeze!" one of them yelled and tried to grab Bertie. He lurched back in terror and ran back towards the middle of the park past bewildered innocents. The whirring of helicopter blades had gotten massively loud, and now several of them surrounded the park, poised to strike, missiles armed and pointed at Bertie. He made for the small toilet block at the center of the park, next to a big clay fountain. Roughly pushing people aside as he made his way, he arrived at the toilets with the soldiers hot on his tail. He busted open the door to the ladies' room and sat on the toilet at the end. Tears rolled down his face as his life flashed before his eyes. He wrapped his hands around his face and sobbed openly, using toilet paper as tissues.
FBI, open up!
3 knocks on the door sealed his fate, and Bertie replied with the only thing he could say. "These nuts have got him," he muttered as the toilet door was knocked down. Brown knew this house. He had been to Smithy's many times before in the old days. He and Smithy used to be tighter than bark on a tree. As he straightened out his stiff back from sleeping on Smithy's race car bed, he reminisced. They had eaten together, played together, even slept together. Then he came along, the man that destroyed Brown and Smithy's blossoming relationship. Before he could dwell on it more, Smithy walked into the room in his nightie and nightcap, clutching his teddy bear. The morning sun moved gently over his face. Brown sat up, surprised at Smithy's entrance. "Ross, I never meant to hurt you. You know that, right?" Smithy's eyes gleamed with a hint of remorse. "Bruce, when you left me for him, it was inevitable someone was going to get hurt," Brown said in a gruff tone. That silenced Smithy, who walked out sadly back into the living room. Meanwhile, at Stapley's cave, he had had his morning vodka on toast, brushed his filthy teeth, and walked outside into the brisk morning air. The bats were cheerful this morning, all huddled up on their stalactites at the entrance of the cave, and as he took a deep breath in, he launched a nuke at Guam to start the day. When he got back inside, he sat back down at his computer and noticed something. A red light was blinking on his massive server bank full of Army intelligence. This red light hadn't blinked for a long time. He put on his military-grade headset as the blue computer screen lit up his face. He tapped into the comms to see what was happening. Most of the comms were screaming about Guam, but Stapley also heard that a smaller battalion of troops had captured a school principal wearing bloomers in the park earlier that morning. Stapley instantly knew it was Bertie. That idiot had gone and got himself captured by the FBI. "When I find that bloody nitwit, I'll rip his bloody head from his bloody shoulders," Stapley said as he rang the others. Bertie awoke in a dark room, with a gag in his mouth and pee in his boxer shorts. He sat on a cold metal chair and stared at the massive one-sided window in front of him. A small poster was on the wall to the left of him. A kitten was hanging from a tree branch with a sad look. The caption said, "This kitten is a wanted fugitive who murdered 3 people and is on death row." Somehow, the poster wasn't very comforting to Bertie. Suddenly, the door burst open, and a completely naked man wearing nothing but a pink tie around his neck wandered in. He was quite old and hairy, and Bertie could smell baby powder as the man walked up to him with a huge smile on his face. It was as if his face had been stapled into a permanent grin, and as he stood in front of him, Bertie could only stare as he contemplated what would happen next. "Hello, Mr. Bertram," the man said in a deep, grinding voice that didn't match his appearance at all. "We're going to have a little chat," the man said as he licked his lips with a long, wet tongue. "Can you don't?" asked Bertie. "Unfortunately not, Bertram. You see, you've been on our watch list for a while, and this is the last straw." Suddenly, Bertie started singing. "A paddy is a paddy, that's what I say." The man was initially surprised but joined in. "A grill is a grill, this is surely so." Bertie was on the brink of tears, but he kept singing. "And fries should be fries, either way." Then a soft, silky voice rang out from the darkness. Donald J. Trump joined the chorus of singing. "But this grill is not the home, this is not the stove, I know." They sang on into the night, and hours later when Bertie was left alone again, tied up, in the dark empty room, the last lyrics resonated in his mind, as an image of Rathbone's gleaming dome faded into view. "This kitchen must stay without you." Rathbone was soaking in his 60-meter lap pool filled with milky white mayonnaise in his underground fortress. The thoughts going through his glistening dome were swirling like a tidal wave. He swam to the pool's edge and climbed the ladder onto the brick sewer floor. He dried himself with NBHS codes and slipped his naked body into a silky purple gown. His dome began to glow, and a holographic image of Barney the dinosaur projected in front of him. "Boner, you have one new message," the holographic Barney said in his cheerful tone. Rathbone sighed and walked into the living room of his subterranean mansion. The room was decorated with fancy wallpaper, golden furniture, and massive paintings of Rathbone's holy chrome dome. A gigantic golden chandelier hung from the ceiling, next to the disco ball used on Friday nights. He picked up the phone off the broken side table and played the message. Stapley's gravelly voice filled his eardrums. "Wayne, Bertie's been captured. Tell the others. We need to get that knucklehead back before he tells the FBI the Order's secrets." A frown moved across Rathbone's face as he put down the phone and rang Brown and Smithy. Smithy and Brown were sitting in Smithy's room in dead silence. Their relationship was awkward as it was, but with Brown staying in Smithy's dark, filthy den of a house after his return, things were worse. "So," Smithy said. Brown lifted his head in his direction, not making eye contact. "Stuff," Brown said awkwardly. Suddenly the phone rang, and they both ran towards it, knocking heads as they got to the table. "Damn it, Bruce," muttered Brown as he picked up the phone. His eyes widened as he heard the news. He put down the phone and turned to Smithy, his eyes alight with fiery anger matching Satan himself. "Come on, Bruce. We're going to the school." End of chapter 3. Tune in next time